The alarm blared through Pacific Command headquarters at 3:17 a.m. Captain Daniel Wright jolted awake in his quarters, fumbling for his phone as it vibrated urgently on his nightstand. "Right here," he answered, voice still thick with sleep. "Sir, we've detected an unidentified object entering Earth's atmosphere over the Central Pacific," reported the night officer. "Trajectory and speed don't match any known satellite or debris patterns." Wright was fully alert now. "I'll be there in 5. In the command center, screens showed the anomalous object's descent. Lieutenant Olivia Martin, the center's atmospheric specialist, was already running calculations. "Whatever it is, it's slowing down," she explained as Wright entered. "That's not normal re-entry behavior. This thing is controlling its descent." Wright studied the trajectory. "Where's it headed?" "Based on current path, looks like it'll make water landing about 200 miles southwest of Hawaii," Martin replied. Within the hour, Wright and Martin were aboard a military helicopter with a small team of specialists. Naval vessels were already en route to the projected landing site, and 2 fighter jets circled the area. "Command, this is Eagle One," the lead pilot's voice crackled over the radio. "Object has splashed down. It's not what we expected. Approximately 30 feet in diameter, spherical, metallic construction." When Wright's team arrived, naval crews had established a perimeter around the floating object. In daylight, it gleamed with an iridescent surface unlike any Earth metal. "No radiation detected," reported Petty Officer Ben Garcia, lowering his sensor equipment. "But there's something else. Biological readings. Something's alive in there." The team approached in smaller boats, with Wright taking point. As they drew closer, the surface of the sphere began to change, sections sliding apart to reveal an opening. Before anyone could react, the first beast emerged. It was roughly the size of a tiger but resembled nothing from Earth. 6 limbs moved with predatory grace, its body covered in what looked like overlapping plates of armor. Multiple yellow eyes blinked in a face dominated by interlocking jaws. "Hold position," Wright ordered, raising his weapon. "Do not engage unless." The beast moved with impossible speed, leaping from the sphere to the closest boat. 2 sailors went down before they could fire a shot. The creature's claws tore through body armor like paper. "Open fire," Wright commanded. Bullets hit the creature, but seemed to do little damage. Where they pierced its hide, the wounds closed almost immediately. 3 more beasts emerged from the sphere, each slightly different in appearance, but equally lethal. They scattered, 2 diving into the ocean, while another leaked between boats with devastating effect. "Fall back," Wright yelled into his radio. "All units fall back. Request immediate air support." In the chaos that followed, Martin managed to capture footage of the creatures before retreating to the helicopter. The 4th beast pursued them, actually climbing the side of a naval vessel to launch itself at the rising aircraft. Wright emptied his magazine into the creature as it clung to the helicopter's landing skid. Finally, a shot to one of its eyes sent it plummeting back to the ocean. As they flew back to base, Martin reviewed the footage while medical personnel treated the wounded. "Those weren't natural creatures," she said, showing Wright close-up images. "Look at the symmetry, the mechanical precision of the joint structures. These things were engineered." Wright's jaw tightened. Engineered by whom? Before Martin could answer, their radio crackled. "Pacific Command to Captain Wright. We're receiving reports of similar objects entering atmosphere over the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and Sea of Japan." Wright and Martin exchanged grim looks. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was the beginning of something much bigger. "Sir," said Martin quietly, "I think someone just dropped war beasts on Earth." Wright nodded slowly. "And I think they've made a big mistake." Dr. Alan Foster hadn't slept in 36 hours. The xenobiologist hunched over his microscope, examining tissue samples from the juvenile war beast captured in San Diego. Behind him, military scientist Samantha Kelly monitored vital signs on the sedated creature secured to the reinforced examination table. "Remarkable," Foster muttered. adjusting the focus. The cellular structure reorganizes itself in response to damage. I've never seen anything like it. Kelly glanced nervously at the restraints. How long until the sedative wears off? Unknown. Its metabolism processes chemicals differently than Earth life. Could be minutes, could be hours. 3 days had passed since the first pods landed. Initial casualty reports exceeded 5,000 worldwide, with coastal cities bearing the brunt of the attacks. The beasts spread inland quickly, demonstrating not just ferocity but tactical intelligence. The lab door slid open as Captain Wright entered with Lieutenant Martin. "Please tell me you have something," Wright said. Foster straightened his back with a crack. "We've made progress. These aren't just animals. They're weapons, bioengineered from the molecular level up." Kelly pulled up a series of scans on the main display. Their healing ability comes from specialized cells that instantly replicate when damage occurs. Conventional weapons can slow them down, but they adapt with each encounter. "We've noticed," Martin said grimly. "Teams in Europe report the beasts are already developing resistance to our tactics. That's because they learn collectively," Foster explained, pointing to scans of the beast's brain. "See this unusual structure? It acts like a biological transmitter and receiver. When one beast encounters a new threat and survives, that information is shared with all others." Wright frowned. "So they're getting smarter with every failed attack." "Precisely," Kelly confirmed. "And there's more. The pods themselves weren't random landings. Analysis shows controlled entry trajectories designed for specific geographic distribution." Foster moved to another screen showing global landing patterns. They're targeting population centers, military installations, and power infrastructure. This wasn't an accident or exploration mission. "It's a test," Martin concluded. "Someone's testing their weapons on us." A technician burst into the lab. "Sir, satellite imagery detected 23 new objects entering atmosphere. Bigger than the first wave." Wright's hand tightened into a fist. "Where?" "Worldwide, sir, but clustered around major military bases." The creature on the table twitched, one yellow eye slowly opening. Foster quickly administered another dose of sedative. "We need to understand who sent them and why," Wright said. "Any progress on the pod communications?" Kelly nodded, pulling up another screen. "We've identified subsonic frequencies emitting from both the beasts and pods. They're transmitting data somewhere, presumably back to wherever they came from. And whoever that is," Foster added, "they clearly see us as either a threat or a testing ground." The emergency phone line rang. Wright answered, his expression darkening as he listened. "Understood," he said before hanging up. "World leaders are gathering for an emergency summit in Geneva. Meanwhile, Colonel Jack Harmon is forming a special response team. He's requesting both of you to join as scientific advisors." Foster looked at the unconscious beast. "If we can understand them fully, we might find a weakness." A low, vibrating hum suddenly filled the room. The monitoring equipment began to malfunction as the beast's vital signs spiked. "What's happening?" Wright demanded. Kelly frantically checked readings. "It's sending some kind of signal. The frequency is." The beast's eyes snapped open, all 6 limbs straining against restraints that suddenly seemed inadequate. A deep, reverberating sound emerged from its throat. "It's calling for help," Foster whispered in horror. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Over the intercom, a panicked voice shouted, "Perimeter breach. Multiple hostiles approaching from the east." Wright drew his weapon. "They're coming for their own." Foster grabbed his research tablet. "Then we need to leave with what we've learned. It may be our only chance to stay ahead of them." As they rushed from the lab, the building shook with the first impacts of the attacking beasts. Humanity's counterattack would have to begin with understanding, before there was nothing left to save. Colonel Jack Harmon stood at the head of the conference table, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical display. Around him sat the newly formed Special Response Team, the best humanity had to offer against an enemy unlike any they'd faced before. "Let's be clear," Harmon said, his voice steady despite the pressure. These things have a 70% kill rate in direct engagements, but thanks to Dr. Foster and Dr. Kelly's research, we now have a fighting chance. Combat specialist Maya Rodriguez studied the beast anatomy displays. With 15 years of special forces experience, she'd fought in every terrain on Earth. None of it had prepared her for this. Their armor weakens at the joint sections, she noted, pointing to highlighted areas. If we can coordinate our attacks there, we might improve our success rate. Beside her, tech expert Nathan Gray was already programming these weaknesses into the targeting systems. I've mapped their known pack hunting patterns, Gray said, bringing up a simulation. They use flanking movements like wolves, but with more complexity. If we can disrupt their formations, individual beasts become less effective. The team had been assembled 4 days ago, after the research facility breach. Since then, reports of successful beast encounters remained rare. Chicago had been the first major victory, where local forces managed to eliminate a pack without civilian casualties. Tell us about Chicago, Harmon directed. Rodriguez pulled up the combat footage. They cornered a group of beasts in the underground transit system. Something about the environment confused them. They became disoriented, less coordinated. Foster leaned forward, studying the footage closely. The tunnels. They would have disrupted the subsonic frequencies the beasts used to communicate. Kelly nodded excitedly. That's why they seemed to lose their tactical advantage. Without their hive mind connection, they function at reduced capacity. Gray was already typing rapidly. I can modify our sonic equipment to generate similar disruptions. Essentially, we'd be jamming their communications. For the first time in days, Harmon allowed himself a slight smile. That's our edge. We isolate them, then eliminate them. The meeting was interrupted as Lieutenant Martin rushed in. Sir, we've identified a pattern in the pod landings. She transferred data to the main screen showing a global map with landing sites highlighted. They're not random. They're specifically targeting our power grid and military response capabilities. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. This isn't just an invasion, Harmon said quietly. It's systematic weakening before something bigger. 3 hours later, Rodriguez led the first field test of their new strategy in Detroit, where a pack of beasts had taken over an industrial district. Her team carried modified sonic disruptors designed by Gray. Remember, keep them in the disruption field, she instructed over the comm. Once isolated, aim for the joint sections. The operation began at dusk. The sonic disruptors created an invisible dome of interfering frequencies, and the effect on the beasts was immediate. Their coordinated movements became erratic, their attacks disjointed. It's working, shouted Private Louis Diaz as his shots found their mark in a beast's neck joint. They're not adapting. Rodriguez pressed the advantage, directing her team to corral the creatures deeper into the disruption field. For the first time, the beasts seemed genuinely confused, some even turning on each other in their disorientation. The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, all 7 beasts lay dead with 0 human casualties. We did it, Rodriguez breathed, surveying their victory. Gray examined readings from the field. The disruption wasn't perfect. I detected faint signals still getting through. They'll adapt eventually. Back at headquarters, Harmon received the success report with measured optimism. It's a start, he told Foster and Kelly. But we need more. These are just the ground troops. Somewhere out there, someone sent these things, and I doubt they're done with us yet. As if in answer to his words, an analyst rushed in with new satellite imagery. The largest pod yet had just entered Earth's atmosphere, heading directly for Washington, D.C. Looks like we got their attention, Harmon said grimly. Now the real fight begins. The captured beast lay motionless on the examination table, heavy restraints securing each of its 6 limbs. Dr. Alan Foster carefully extracted a small metallic device from a cavity near the creature's brain stem. This is it, he said, holding up the thumbnail-sized object. This is how they communicate with their masters. The underground facility outside Denver had become humanity's primary research center after the attack on the previous lab. Captain Wright watched from behind reinforced glass as Foster placed the device in a containment field. "Is that what I think it is?" Wright asked. "More than a communication device," Foster explained. "It's a homing beacon. Each beast transmits data back to whoever sent them." Samantha Kelly connected the containment field to a specialized computer system. "If we can decrypt their transmissions, we might learn who's behind this." The computer began analyzing the alien technology, displaying incomprehensible symbols and code sequences. Kelly's brow furrowed as she studied the data. "This isn't just sending location information," she said. "It's transmitting detailed analysis of our weapons, tactics, even human physiology. These things are studying us while they're killing us." Wright cursed under his breath. "Do we know who's receiving this data?" "Not yet," Foster replied, "but we've identified the signal pattern. They're sending information to a location beyond our solar system. We need to shut down these transmissions," Wright insisted. Engineer Lisa Parker, who had been silently working at a terminal nearby, finally spoke up. "I might have a solution." Parker had been recruited for her expertise in signal disruption technology. She pulled up schematics on her screen. "If these beasts operate on a network principle, we can develop a jamming system to block their outgoing signals. It won't stop the beasts already here, but it could prevent more from finding us." Wright looked skeptical. "Can you build something like that with our current technology?" "It won't be elegant," Parker admitted, "but the basic principles are similar to military jamming systems. I'll need resources and a team." "You'll have whatever you need," Wright promised. 3 days later, Parker's prototype was ready for testing. The team gathered in the main laboratory as she activated the device. A low hum filled the room as the jammer came online. "The containment field is showing disruption in the beacon's output," Kelly confirmed, watching her monitors. "The signal is degrading." Foster checked readings from the captive beast. "Its neural activity is changing. The creature seems confused." "That's a good sign," Wright said. "If we can disrupt their connection to whoever controls them, we might gain an advantage." Parker adjusted settings on her device. "The problem is range. This prototype only covers about 5 square miles. We'd need hundreds, maybe thousands to cover major population centers." "Then we better start mass production," Wright replied. Before they could celebrate this small victory, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. Lieutenant Martin rushed into the lab. "Sir, we've got a situation," she reported breathlessly. "The research team in Australia found something in one of the pods, some kind of data storage device." Minutes later, the team was looking at live footage from the Australian facility. The scientists there had discovered a crystalline structure embedded in the pod's control systems. "We managed to extract some visual data," the lead researcher explained over the video link. "You need to see this." The screen showed images of what appeared to be an alien craft observing Earth from orbit. Date stamps indicated the footage was decades old. "They've been watching us," Foster whispered. "This wasn't a random attack. They've been studying Earth for years." The Australian team continued. "We've identified the species behind this. They call themselves the Vexari Dominion. According to their records, Earth was specifically selected as a testing ground for their biological weapons." Wright's face hardened. "Why us?" The Australian researcher looked grim. The translated text describes humans as primitive but resourceful. "Apparently, we're an ideal challenge for their war beasts. If the beasts can defeat us, they'll be deployed against the Dominion's actual enemies." "So we're just a practice run?" Kelly asked, disgust evident in her voice. "It gets worse," the researcher continued. "The data indicates this is just phase 1. If the beasts perform well, the Vexari plan to escalate the testing." As if to confirm this warning, Parker's monitoring equipment suddenly detected multiple new signals entering Earth's atmosphere. The United Nations chamber, normally filled with diplomatic posturing and careful rhetoric, now buzzed with urgent purpose. Representatives from 153 nations gathered not to debate, but to unite. On the main screen, live footage showed the aftermath of the Moscow battle. Buildings in ruins, but for once more dead beasts than humans. General Elena Volkov addressed the assembly, her uniform still dusty from the front lines. "Moscow stands because we fought together," she said, her voice carrying through the chamber. Russian special forces using American sonic technology, Chinese communication systems, and British tactical support. This is how we survive. The Earth Defense Initiative was formally established that day. Not since World War II had so many nations committed resources to a single cause. In Washington, Colonel Harmon coordinated the global production and distribution of sonic weapons and jammers. Factory lines that once made cars and household appliances now churned out humanity's new defensive tools. "We need to triple production," he told his logistics team. The Moscow victory bought us time, but the beasts are already showing signs of adaptation. Reports from field teams confirmed this worrying development. In Sydney, sonic disruption had less effect on a new variant of beast with modified auditory organs. In Cairo, beasts displayed thickened armor at previously vulnerable joint sections. Dr. Foster worked around the clock analyzing these changes. "They're evolving faster than any natural process," he told Samantha Kelly as they examined specimens. "Each generation specifically counters our latest tactics." At a research station in Alaska, scientist Kevin Bradley made a discovery that changed everything. His team had been excavating an anomalous metal object found beneath the permafrost. "This isn't from the current invasion," Bradley told Harmon over a secure video call. "Carbon dating places it at approximately 50 years old. It's a monitoring device." "They've been watching us," Harmon realized. The current attack wasn't random. They've been studying Earth for decades. The device contained data storage systems unlike anything human technology had produced. Bradley's team worked to extract information while Harmon brought in Zoe Campbell, a brilliant civilian hacker who had been helping the military decode beast communications. Campbell's unconventional methods broke through the alien encryption in just 3 days. "It's not just monitoring data," she explained, eyes wide with excitement and lack of sleep. "It contains complete technical specifications of Vexari systems. That's what they call themselves. The Vexari Dominion." The information proved invaluable. Within weeks, Campbell's team decrypted the tactical protocols the beasts used for coordination. For the first time, humans could predict attack patterns before they happened. In Paris, the EDI Council convened to implement the new intelligence. Maya Rodriguez, now promoted to major after successful operations across 3 continents, presented a unified strategy. "We no longer just react," she told the assembled military leaders. "With Campbell's decryption, we can anticipate their adaptations and counter before they evolve." The tide began to turn. Successful defenses in Johannesburg, Lima, and Seoul demonstrated humanity's growing capability. Beast casualty rates increased to 60%, then 70%. Yet victory remained fragile. During the Seoul operation, beasts displayed a disturbing new ability. Some could now partially function despite sonic disruption. "They're developing immunity to our main advantage," Nathan Gray warned during an emergency briefing. "And the pods keep coming." Bradley's analysis of the Vexari monitoring device revealed another critical discovery. The beasts were not just weapons, but data collection systems. Each engagement with humans sent tactical information back to the Vexari. "They're learning about us as much as we're learning about them," he explained. Harmon stared at the global map showing beast concentrations and human defensive positions. "Then we need to change the game. Stop playing by their rules." For the first time since the war began, a glimmer of hope emerged, not just of survival, but of victory. Humanity had faced extinction, and instead found unity. Now they would show the Vexari Dominion why Earth was the wrong planet to test. "We've been fighting to survive," Harmon told his commanders. "It's time we start fighting to win." Kevin Bradley stared at the holographic display, running his hand through his disheveled hair. Beside him, Zoe Campbell manipulated the alien code sequences with practiced ease. 3 weeks of non-stop work had led to this moment. "It could work," Bradley said, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "If we can hijack their communication network, we could potentially control the beasts instead of just jamming them." Campbell nodded. "The Vexari use quantum entanglement principles for their command signals. We can't replicate their technology exactly, but we can mimic the frequency patterns enough to insert our own commands." Colonel Harmon listened intently. The plan was audacious, perhaps even desperate, but conventional warfare was failing. Even with improved weapons and tactics, humanity was losing ground. "How would we implement this?" Harmon asked. "We need to capture their primary communication hub," Campbell explained. "Based on our signal analysis, there's a central node coordinating the regional beast networks. We believe it's located somewhere in the Amazon rainforest." Satellite imagery confirmed unusual activity in a remote section of the Brazilian jungle. Thermal scans revealed a concentration of beasts surrounding what appeared to be a larger version of the original pods. "That's our target," Bradley said, pointing to the structure. "If we can access that hub, we can potentially reprogram the entire network." Captain Wright and Lieutenant Martin volunteered to lead the assault team. With experience from multiple beast engagements, they were among the few who had faced the creatures and survived repeatedly. "We'll need a diversion," Wright said, studying the tactical map. "Something to draw most of the beasts away from the hub." Lisa Parker, who had been refining her jamming technology, offered a solution. "We can modify the beacons we've recovered to emit signals that would attract the beasts. Essentially, we'd be calling them to locations of our choosing." The plan took shape quickly. EDI forces would deploy modified beacons at strategic locations around the world, drawing beasts away from their current positions. Meanwhile, Wright and Martin would leave a small team to capture the communication hub in the Amazon. Preparation took 5 days. Across the globe, military units readied for coordinated action. This would be humanity's most ambitious counteroffensive yet. The operation began at dawn. Modified beacons activated simultaneously in 50 locations worldwide. The effect was immediate. Beasts abandoned their hunting grounds, moving en masse toward the false signals. "It's working," Parker confirmed, monitoring global beast movements. Population centers are reporting up to 70% reduction in beast presence. In Brazil, Wright's team approached the communication hub in stealth helicopters. The diversion had worked better than expected. Only a dozen beasts remained to guard the structure. "Sonic disruptors at maximum," Wright ordered as they touched down. "We need to neutralize the guards without damaging the hub." The assault was precise and methodical. Advanced sonic weapons disoriented the beasts, while specialized strike teams targeted vulnerable joints. Within 20 minutes, the area was secure. "Hub entrance identified," Martin reported, approaching a seamless section of the pod-like structure. No obvious way in. Nathan Gray, who had joined the assault team for his technical expertise, examined the surface. It responds to Vexari biosignatures. He removed a preserved beast tissue sample from his pack. "Let's see if this works." The surface rippled when the tissue made contact, revealing an entrance. Inside, the team found a chamber filled with alien technology, crystalline structures pulsing with light, connected to biological components. "This is it," Gray confirmed, connecting his equipment, the central node of their communication network. As Campbell guided him remotely, Gray began the delicate process of accessing the Vexari systems. Hours passed as he worked, the tension mounting. Outside, reports indicated beasts were beginning to ignore the beacon lures, possibly adapting to the deception. "We're running out of time," Wright warned. Finally, Gray looked up with a grim smile. "I'm in. Uploading our command protocols now." The crystalline structures flashed rapidly, changing from blue to red as the new commands propagated through the network. Throughout the chamber, alien systems hummed at a different frequency. "Is it working?" Martin asked. They didn't have to wait long for an answer. Outside, the remaining beasts suddenly turned on each other, attacking with the same ferocity they had previously directed at humans. Campbell's voice came through their comms, jubilant but cautious. The reprogramming is propagating worldwide. Beasts are turning against each other everywhere. It should have been a moment of triumph, but Gray's expression remained tense as he studied. The Vexari mothership hung in Earth's orbit like a metallic spider, its central mass extending long, segmented appendages. On screens around the world, civilians and military personnel alike stared at humanity's first clear view of the beings who had tried to exterminate them. In the hastily assembled war room beneath Denver, Colonel Harmon addressed the combined leadership of the Earth Defense Initiative. The mothership is approximately 6 miles in diameter, he explained, pointing to satellite imagery. It's positioned in geosynchronous orbit over the Pacific. No offensive actions yet, but they're scanning our defenses extensively. Lisa Parker and Nathan Gray had been working nonstop since returning from the Amazon. The communication hub they captured had yielded critical information about Vexari technology. We've completed reverse engineering their beast control systems, Parker announced, bringing up schematics on the main display. Using their own technology against them, we can now control the remaining beasts on Earth. Gray added, more importantly, we've modified several hundred beasts with enhanced capabilities. They respond only to human commands now. Dr. Foster studied the modified beasts through observation windows. The creatures had been surgically altered, their natural armor enhanced with Earth metals, their communication systems rewired to human specifications. They're still dangerous, he cautioned, but they're our dangerous now. Captain Wright volunteered to lead the diplomatic team. After surviving more beast encounters than anyone, he understood the enemy better than most. The Vexari respect strength, he argued. We need to approach from a position of power, not desperation. Within hours of the mothership's arrival, smaller craft deployed from its hull. EDI forces tracked 27 vessels entering atmosphere, heading for major cities. They're not taking chances this time, Harmon observed grimly. This looks like a full invasion force. But humanity was ready. As Vexari ships approached, they were met not by panicked resistance but by organized. In London, modified beasts intercepted Vexari landing parties, tearing through aliens that resembled elongated humanoids with exoskeletal armor. In Tokyo, beast units protected evacuation routes while military forces engaged the enemy with weapons adapted from alien technology. Wright, Martin, and a small team launched toward the mothership in a modified spacecraft equipped with Vexari communication systems. As they approached, the massive ship's defense systems tracked their vessel that didn't fire. They're curious, Martin noted. They didn't expect us to come to them. They were met by 3 Vexari, each standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 upper limbs and an appearance somewhere between insectoid and reptilian. Their leader wore elaborate armor adorned with symbols of rank. You have surprised us, humans, the leader spoke through a translation device. Our war beasts have never been defeated before, much less turned against their masters. Wright stood his ground. You made a mistake attacking Earth. We're not just test subjects for your weapons. The Vexari commander made a sound that might have been laughter. You were selected precisely because your species showed potential. Primitive, but adaptable. We did not expect such rapid evolution of counter-strategies. Below, reports came in of successful defenses at all landing sites. The modified beasts were proving more effective against the Vexari than even the most optimistic projections had suggested. Your invasion has failed, Wright said simply, but we're willing to discuss terms that don't involve the extinction of either species. The commander studied Wright with multifaceted eyes. You offer negotiation while holding our own weapons against us. Fascinating. A subordinate Vexari approached, conveying information through clicks and whistles. The commander's posture stiffened. Your modified beasts have neutralized all our landing parties, the commander acknowledged. Impressive adaptation. The negotiation that followed would later be remembered as humanity's first interstellar treaty. The Vexeri agreed to withdraw and designate Earth as a protected territory. In exchange, humans would share their unique approach to beast modification, an approach the Vexeri had never considered. As the mothership departed Earth orbit, Harmon stood with his team watching the screens. "They came expecting to find easy prey," he said quietly. "Instead, they found equals." Foster nodded. "They dropped war beasts on Earth thinking we'd be simple test subjects. Big mistake," Martin finished with a small smile. In the months that followed, humanity began rebuilding. The modified beasts were contained in special facilities, studied rather than destroyed. Earth prepared for its new role in a much larger galactic community, no longer isolated, and never again to be underestimated.